Inflation. Okay, it's a word we hear all the time, right? On the news, online, but what's it really doing to the money in our pockets? Well, today we're going to break it all down, look at what causes it, and uncover a really surprising twist about our psychology that might just change how you think about rising prices. Let's get into it. You know that feeling, don't you? You're at the grocery store, you're filling up your car, and you just look at the total and think, whoa, how did that happen? It feels like you're working just as hard, but your paycheck is somehow shrinking. Well, guess what? You are not imagining it. That feeling is very, very real, and it has a name: inflation. But this isn't just going to be some dry economics lesson. Nope. We're going to dive into how inflation actually plays games with our minds and reveal something pretty surprising about how we react when prices go up. Okay, first things first, let's make sure we're all on the same page. What exactly is inflation? So, at its absolute core, inflation is just when your money buys less than it used to. It's this slow, kind of sneaky erosion of your purchasing power. The dollar bill in your wallet is still a dollar bill, but what it can actually get you, from a cup of coffee to a new phone, goes down over time. To really feel the impact of this, let's do a little time travel. Picture this: it's 1975. You've got $10,000 cash. I mean, back then that was a ton of money. Okay, so to buy the same amount of stuff that you could with that $10,000 back then, you would need almost $61,000 today. That is a massive jump. And that is the long-term power of inflation right there. All right, and a super quick clarification, because you hear these words thrown around. Inflation means prices are going up. Simple. Now, disinflation, this one's a little tricky. It means prices are still going up, just not as fast. The foot is still on the gas, but maybe not pushed down as hard. And then deflation is the total opposite. That's when prices are actually falling. So, the big question is, why? What's actually behind all this? Well, economists usually point to three main culprits. First up, we've got what's called demand pull inflation. You can think of this as the classic too much money chasing too few goods. When everybody's out there spending and the economy's booming, but there isn't enough stuff to go around, well, prices get pulled upwards. The second one is cost push inflation. This one comes from the other side of the equation. Say the cost of raw materials or energy skyrockets, like a big spike in oil prices. Well, it suddenly costs more to make and ship everything. So what do businesses do? They push those extra costs onto us, the consumers, and poof, higher prices. And number three is called built-in inflation. Now, this one is fascinating because it's all about what we expect to happen. If everyone thinks prices are going to keep rising, what do? They ask for higher wages. And when businesses have to pay higher wages, what do? They raise prices. It becomes a self-fulfilling cycle, sometimes called a wage price spiral. Okay, so now that we've got the economics down, let's shift gears. This is where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about this psychology. How do rising prices actually affect our brains and the decisions we make every single day? I mean, how does all this economic pressure really change what we do? Well, a fascinating recent study decided to dig into this exact question, looking into the psychology of how we spend our money when inflation is high. The researchers zoomed in on three key things. First, our perception of inflation. How we feel about it, the anxiety. Second, our expectations, what we think is going to happen to prices down the road. And third, our actual coping strategies, the real practical things we do to manage our money. So just think about that for a second. When you're standing in a store, trying to decide whether to buy something or not, what do you think is driving that decision? Is it your feeling, your forecast for the future, or your financial plan? Which one has the most power? Well, the answer from the study was actually pretty surprising. It turns out one of these factors was way, way more important than the others. And here it is. This is the big reveal. The study found that our perception, our feelings, our anxiety about inflation had basically no real impact on our actual spending. Crazy, right? Our expectations for the future? Yeah, that mattered a bit. But the hands-down winner, the thing that had the strongest effect by far, it was our practical, on-the-ground coping strategies and our financial planning. And here's a quote straight from the researchers that just nails it. Basically, what they're saying is that just feeling stressed or anxious about inflation doesn't really change what we do with our money. What makes the real difference is having an actual, concrete plan. Okay, so what's the big takeaway here? What does this actually mean for you and me in our everyday lives? Well, for us as consumers, the message is loud and clear. Your financial plan is way more powerful than your financial anxiety. Focusing on budgeting, hunting for deals, and planning your purchases is a much better strategy than just worrying. For businesses, it means that people are actively planning and looking for good value. And for policymakers, it shows just how important financial education is to help people build these powerful coping skills.
Which brings us to one last big question to chew on. If our real power comes from our plans, not our perceptions, maybe we should spend a little less time worrying about the scary inflation headlines and a little more time focused on our own household budgets. Something to think about, right? Thanks for tuning in.